Superfly was one of the most successful blaxploitation films. Made on a shoestring budget, it went on to get over $30 million at the box office. That's more than Shaft. And for 1 week, it even knocked The Godfather out of the top grossing spot. Very, very impressive. When I interviewed Josiah Howard, author of this book, Blaxploitation Cinema, he even put Superfly in his top 5 blaxploitation films. But I wouldn't put it on mine. It doesn't even make my top 10. Welcome to Exploitation Reviews, and me, Rob, and today I'm taking a look at Superfly from 1972. This is a very well-loved blaxploitation film, but it's not well-loved by me. There's a lot to admire here, but I think this is a very flawed film. Let's see why. We open looking down on a street corner. 2 guys meet up, and one guy doesn't have the money. They wander down the street. There will be lots of wandering in this movie, so let's get used to that right away. Then we hop over to our main character, Priest. He's in bed with his side chick. He says he has to make a pickup, and then we watch him wander around town. He hops in his car and drives around town through the credits. He parks, kind of, and the 2 guys from the beginning jump him. Priest gives chase, he eventually catches up and gets his money back. Priest goes to a meeting of sorts, and a few guys tell him that Fat Freddy has not yet got his money, and Priest is not too happy about that. So it looks like Priest is the boss of some sort of crew, and he tells Freddy that if he doesn't get him the money tonight, Priest is going to turn his wife out.
Listen, Priest, that's my wife you talking about, man.
So what? Now somebody's going to work tonight, Freddy.
Then Priest heads over to his next meeting. He interrupts a craps game and pulls away his partner, Eddie. He needs to talk. The others are not very pleased that Priest has interrupted their game. They would very much like a chance to win their money back, but Priest is unconcerned with their financial issues. Back in an apartment, Priest tells Eddie that he wants out of the game. Eddie doesn't understand why anyone would want out. It's a good life, but Priest can see the life for what it is. It's shit, and he wants out of it. And it's here that we learn exactly what Priest is. He's a drug dealer, and together with his partner Eddie, they run a small crew of about 50 men. He tells Eddie his plan, which is to take all of their money, about $300,000, and buy a whole lot of cocaine, and then sell all of that, which will get them about $1 million, split it 2 ways, and then Priest splits for good. Eddie eventually comes around to the idea. So, 20 minutes in, and we've got the makings of a plot. And you know, if I were directing this, I would have started with Priest interrupting that craps game. All that running around we saw at the beginning didn't really amount to much. The craps game and the subsequent conversation with Eddie is where the movie really begins. Anyway, Priest heads to a club, and there he is, the real star of this movie, Curtis Mayfield. Mayfield did the soundtrack for the film, and it was a huge hit. Both singles off the album sold over 1 million copies, and the full album went gold within 3 months of release. It was nominated for a number of Grammys and was a huge influence on hip-hop and rap. It's one of very few soundtracks to outgross the movie it was made for, and this movie did very good business, so that's no small thing. The Superfly soundtrack is one of the best funk soul albums ever made, and it's been a personal favorite of mine for decades. Anyway, back to the movie. Priest meets up with a guy who can perhaps get him some drugs, and it takes a little convincing, but he is eventually convinced. Things are looking up, and then they immediately start to go south. Freddy, one of Priest's pushers, gets arrested and gives the cops Priest's name and tells them where Priest is going to make a pickup. Not too good. But it turns out that the cops are dirty.
I mean, do you believe that?
I'm shocked.
They're actually part of the drug selling business, and they want Priest and his crew to move drugs for them. Eddie thinks this is a great development because it'll provide some protection for their business. Priest is not convinced. Besides, now he's working for the man, and he is sure that the man will not take kindly to the idea of him getting out of the game. And then we get a montage of the drugs hitting the streets. I'm pretty sure Shaft 2019 references this montage style at some point in the movie. But anyway, after all this is said and done, Priest still wants out, others don't want him out, there will be some infighting, some backstabbing, some violence, and that's enough out of me as far as plot goes. Let's talk some highlights. Well, I've already mentioned the soundtrack, quite possibly the best soundtrack ever, so let's just move on. One of the interesting things about blaxploitation is that the films show their inner city characters in a more or less accurate milieu. Want to see what Harlem looked like in the early 1970s? Watch Superfly or Black Caesar. Want to see what Greenwich Village looked like? Watch Shaft. Superfly does a great job of capturing the city, warts and all. The back alleys are dirty, the apartments are in various states of disrepair, the clubs are poorly lit, and this environment is perfect for this kind of movie. Superfly tries to show that the street hustler life is not a glamorous one, and they drive that point home partly by showing unglamorous streets. On that point, by the way, blaxploitation films in general, and Superfly in particular, were criticized for glamorizing criminal lifestyles. But in Superfly's case, that complaint really is not warranted. The whole movie is about a character who sees the lifestyle for what it is, shit, and is trying to find a way out. This is not a pro-hustler movie. This is an anti-hustler movie. And I do like the story here quite a bit. It's interesting to see how everyone in Priest's life is trying to keep him trapped in a life he doesn't want. It's not just the man keeping him down, it's also his boys. And that's a pretty cool take on a hustler film. In addition to the environments I mentioned before, the characters also look great. Especially Priest. He wears some great outfits and his car is amazing. It was actually a real pimp's custom Cadillac. He agreed to let the filmmakers use it in exchange for a role in the film. That's him right there. Also have to praise the acting here, in particular Ron O'Neal as Priest. He just nails the role. He was a classically trained Shakespearean actor, and when his movie career didn't take off, I think he returned to theater. It's too bad his film career never amounted to much, and that's unfortunately true of many stars from the blaxploitation era. But despite looking great and having some great acting for the budgetary level, this film is not perfect. Like a hustler in a bath with his girl, this film has some shortcomings. The general rule for screenwriting is that about 1 page of a screenplay is about 1 minute of film. This is, of course, not a hard and fast rule. It can vary a little bit depending on the writer's writing style and the director's filming style, but as a general rule, it's pretty good. Superfly is 90 minutes long. The screenplay was 45 pages. No matter what your writing style or directing style, that's not enough content for a feature film. And it shows. There are numerous sequences of people walking or driving from place to place. People having conversations we can't hear, action sequences that go on for too long, and a 4-minute montage sequence in the middle of a movie. Superfly is a great TV-length show stretched to its breaking point as a feature film. And this really should not have happened. At some point early in the production, some producer should have said, no, this is 45 pages, that's not enough for a feature-length film, take another 2 or 3 weeks, add 20, 25 pages to the script, and then we can get started. But that didn't happen, and that's really unfortunate. Priest is a great character, there is a great story in here, and it's got one of the best soundtracks ever, but there's not enough story content here for a feature film. Somebody should have made them write another 20 or 25 pages, and then maybe we could have gotten one of the best blaxploitation films ever instead of this deeply flawed one.